to US Tzu Chi 360, I'm Ginger Chang. Today marks the eve of the second anniversary of the earthquake, tsunami, and Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power station disasters that happened in Japan on March 11, 2011. Following the aftermath, Tzu Chi volunteers responded with immediate disaster relief aid. Since then, Tzu Chi has conducted 10 relief distributions and assisted about 100,000 survivors with financial aid. The series of disasters on March 11th reinvigorated the debate about whether nuclear energy would be in the mix of our energy source in the future. Nuclear energy is an issue that's not very cut and dried. Fortunately, we have Dr. Benjamin Baderson, who is the Editor-in-Chief Emeritus of the American Physical Society and an Emeritus Professor of Physics at New York University, to give us a broad spectrum on nuclear energy. Welcome, Dr. Baderson.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
So since we are broadcasting on the eve of the second anniversary of what happened at Fukushima, I wanted to know, what are the lessons the nuclear industry learned from Fukushima?
Well, I guess the first lesson that the industry learned is that accidents do happen, and no matter how much you prepare, sooner or later something is going to go wrong. When there is a human error involved, as there was in this case, and there was a natural disaster in addition, it was a really an overwhelming surprise, and it's very hard to plan for such things. And furthermore, when one plans for accidents, usually one thinks of the past, because you don't know what, but the next accident is going to be different. And sure enough, Fukushima was a different kind of an accident from the ones that the nuclear industry had before.
Okay. Would you say location is also another issue? Well,
location is a serious issue, but that's partly because water is a necessity for nuclear power plants. You have to be located near a very strong water cooling source, because the nuclear energy creates a lot of heat. And this naturally leads you to locate plants near large rivers or even near the ocean.
I see. Okay.
And you don't have a choice. You don't have a complete choice as to where to put nuclear plants.
Well, the 3/11 incident sparked global fears, namely in France. And being a nuclear power champion and the largest exporter of electricity in Europe, we're now going to take a break. Okay?
Okay.
And let's follow my teammate Nils as we go and hear what the French people have to say about nuclear energy.
We can't be against nuclear. Today, for me, it's impossible.
I've been since my youngest age anti-nuclear, and every year that passes I'm a little more against it.
En 58, j'avais 8 ans et j'ai appris à nager dans cette Loire.
It's either denial or desperation. People either say nothing will happen, we'll be safe, or, well, if it happens, we'll all be dead.
Among the 2 million residents of Paris, about 99% have their electricity coming from nuclear energy. And even in the winter time, when the heat consumption reaches its peak, France remains one of the only countries in Europe that rarely has to import electricity from abroad. Why? Because France is the most nuclearized country in the world. And while leaving Paris, it is easy to see it. Less than 100 kilometers away from the heart of the capital, we found the first power plants. France has a total of 19 power plants, represented by the green points on a map. The purple points you see are the other side of the nuclear sector. These points represent the sites where nuclear waste is being stored. The blue ones are the nuclear military sites, and all the different roads are commonly known as the nuclear way, because they are used either to transport uranium and nuclear fuel or the waste. Now it's easy to understand why most of the French are interested in the nuclear-related questions. It is now hard to know if the majority of French are pro or anti-nuclear. That is why we decided to meet people from both sides. The most important anti-nuclear network in France is known as Réseau Sortir du Nucléaire, literally, the phasing out of the nuclear. And some of its activists have adopted an energy-saving way of life.
I am a teacher and a councilwoman for the town of Les Deux, and in the same time, I'm the president of the Sortir du Nucléaire network here. That's why I spend most of my time fighting.
I'm an engineer, and I started my anti-nuclear militancy as a baby. My parents were already anti-nuclear activists. Sortir du Nucléaire. It's a network of local French activist groups that are trying to undertake actions. Here for the plant of Saint Laurent, we are really active, but not as much as we would like to be. But we still do lots of activism. Last year, we organized a long human chain by the Rhone River, where all the French anti-nuclear groups gathered to protest. Another protest was here, in front of the plant. The plant of Saint Laurent has had several serious incidents or accidents that almost became nuclear catastrophe, like Chernobyl or Fukushima. The biggest accident in France so far at level 4 was here in Saint Laurent in 1980.
We are on the site of Avaray, facing the plant of Saint Laurent des Eaux. We have here the natural uranium graphite gas reactors, really the first generation of reactors. And here to your right are the new pressurized water reactors. I like this plant of Saint Laurent because I've spent my entire career working here. Now, I'm the mayor of a town called Villebarou. And people started telling me, how can you conciliate to the environment and sustainable development when you have a nuclear background? And I tell them that it's exactly what I'm doing. I consider myself a social democrat nuclear environmentalist. Really simple, right? And I do want to contribute to the energy transition, reduce nuclear power, and develop the other energies. But today, with my experience, I think we can't make it without nuclear, and it doesn't prevent me from taking actions for our Earth, for our children to have a sustainable future. Here are 35 years of my life. Beautiful, no? I know some people might be shocked by that.
Bon, moi j'ai appris à nager dans la Loire, ici, là, avant l'existence de la centrale, et ma première manifestation antinucléaire, c'était juste là, de l'autre côté de la Loire, pour empêcher la construction de cette centrale. On a bien vu à quoi on arrive. La centrale s'est construite, la centrale s'est arrêtée, il y en a une deuxième depuis qui est construite derrière, ce qui fait que pour des centaines d'années, on a du nucléaire au bord de la Loire et qui réchauffe l'eau en plus. Donc, par contre, j'ai un vrai plaisir à photographier cette architecture industrielle. Il y a une puissance, il y a un geste architectural qui est pour moi assez incroyable et qui, au bout du compte, est à la gloire du XXIe siècle, comme Chambord était à la gloire du roi au XVIe siècle.
For the past 15 years, only the nuclear authorities and the government recognizes the fact that an accident is possible. I think finally, after Chernobyl and Fukushima, they finally understood. This is why, for the past 15 years, we have evacuation drills. But they are really limited. They only evacuate 50 or 100 people when we know if there's a big accident like we saw in Fukushima. It would be thousands of people to evacuate in a really short period of time. So we have the confinement phase first and then evacuation for everyone within 2 kilometers of the plant.
Here, we're just outside of the 2-kilometer circle zone. I've been part of those confinement and evacuation drills. People are really not prepared. There are these old people in Saint Laurent who opened their windows wide open asking, what did they say? Confinement? What is that?
Ce qui est important, il faut pas.
We can't compare the way we operate nuclear here in France and the way they operate in the US or in Japan. In France, we only have one operator. It's EDF. For me, it's essential. One operator for 58 reactors in 19 nuclear plants. In Japan, they have 11 operators for 54 reactors. Each of them was thinking about its own interest without considering the population or the environmental impact, of which we see today the consequences. The purpose of EDF is to be the state-owned operator that is taking care of everything from A to Z.
Nuclear is so present in the French mentalities. I think we almost need to have an accident here for the French to finally understand.
Yes, because Chernobyl was in the old poor industrial USSR, and Japan is far, so I think they didn't understand the message yet.
I think we have to make some efforts. We have to consume less, of course. Right now, people are consuming so much energy that if we decided, as the government said, to reduce our nuclear consumption to 50%, we can't make it. We need to build houses that consume less energy, to have progressively more wind power, more solar. But right now, we are not ready for that. It's really simple.
Percent of France's electricity is from recycled nuclear waste. The French actually have been at the forefront of reprocessing spent nuclear fuel. However, the US has opted not to, and instead preferred to deposit in a national geologic depository. Dr. Bateson, is this solution actually safe?
Well, there's an enormous amount of work been done to studying the stability of underground storage of nuclear waste. Okay. Experts in the field, in general, believe that properly stored nuclear waste is safe. I must say that not everybody is convinced of the absolute safety. I would say that underground storage is reasonably safe. That doesn't mean that there can't be surprises.
Right.
As we know from the past, there are always surprises.
Mm-hmm. Then also in your lifetime, you've been able to witness 3 nuclear disasters.
Yes.
3 Mile Island, Chernobyl, and Fukushima.
Yes.
Then how do these 3 incidents compare with each other?
Well, I guess the first thing is it demonstrates, once again, that nothing is completely predictable because each of those accidents occurred for different reasons. It shows you how hard it is to plan for everything.
Right.
3 Mile Island was due primarily to mechanical failures.
Oh, okay.
Chernobyl occurred because of human failures, I believe. Bad designs, poor operation, and especially the bad design of the reactor. It didn't have a containing vessel. Hard to imagine that they did that, but the Chernobyl reactors did not have containers surrounding them in case of disaster. Fukushima was a combination of mistakes, human error, but also of the acts of God. You always have some limit on your design, and nature will always find a way of doing something worse for you.
Right.
Disaster engineers will study these 3 disasters, realize that they're all different, and figure out what's the 4th one going to be like. Nobody really knows.
Let's hope not. Let's hope not.
Sooner or later, there has to be some sort of a disaster, even though we would do our best to prevent them.
Well, keeping in the same vein of historical moments, we're going to take a short break and go meet the members of Greenpeace who have been using activism to aggressively push the anti-nuclear movement in France.
La sécu, là!
pas. EDF voudrait nous vendre le fait que le nouveau réacteur d'Areva, l'EPR français, serait plus sûr que les autres. La réalité, c'est qu'il y a 15 jours, le président de la SN disait que ce réacteur ne prenait pas en compte, n'avait pas étudié le cas de figure de ce qui s'est produit à Fukushima et ne serait pas capable de résister dans de telles circonstances.
I am Sofia Magnoni. I am a nuclear campaigner for Greenpeace in France. France is the most nuclearized country in the world, with 75% of our electricity coming from nuclear. The nuclear campaign is one of the historical fight of Greenpeace in the world. Greenpeace started 40 years ago against the atomic bomb. We also fought a lot against the waste issues in France, but in all Europe. I started 3 years ago to fight against the financing of nuclear reactor exports.
Les militants de Greenpeace ont aujourd'hui accroché 2 bannières de chaque côté de l'entrée du siège de BNP Paribas à Paris, ainsi que monté une maquette représentant, symbolisant les 2 EPR que le gouvernement français va aujourd'hui vendre à l'Inde et qui seront financés essentiellement par BNP Paribas. Les militants de Greenpeace viennent d'effectuer une livraison symbolique des millions d'euros radioactifs que la BNP Paribas compte prêter à Areva pour financer un projet de réacteur nucléaire dangereux au Brésil, à Angra dos Reis. Ce réacteur ne respecte pas les minimums de sûreté internationaux. Sa construction a commencé avant Tchernobyl. Il n'est plus du tout aux normes.
When I joined Greenpeace 3 years ago, we had a campaign against the export of nuclear waste to Russia because France was selling or sending a part of its nuclear waste to Russia, saying that one day maybe they can use it, but actually the price was so low that it's just paying for waste and nothing more. So we did a lot of action trying to block trains. There is clearly no solution for nuclear waste. France decided to develop reprocessing, which means a lot of transport of nuclear waste, which means also deep geological storage, and which means a lot of contamination due to reprocessing. Like 40 years ago, the countries believed that the best option was to dump the waste at sea, because it was easy to lose the radioactivity within the waves. It was forbidden a few years ago, so now they are looking for another option, and of course dumping is a very easy and cheap option, but then you need to be sure that for hundreds of thousands of years the contamination will not move from where it is stored, which is actually not possible. So there is no really clear and ideal option, and especially no cheap option to store the waste. That's why when Greenpeace campaign against nuclear, the first thing we ask is stopping the production of nuclear waste, so stopping nuclear activities, and then we can discuss a solution for waste. The reality is that safe nuclear doesn't exist. The nuclear by itself is a dangerous technology. So we wanted to highlight that. So we organized a huge action where we wanted to show that it's very easy to enter a nuclear power plant and to go at the heart of the nuclear power plant, which means the reactor. And that's what we did. In 15 minutes, our activists reached the roof of the nuclear reactor in Nogent-sur-Seine, which is 100 kilometers close to Paris. So it was a very successful action. And after that, the Prime Minister took a commitment to ask for a security stress test. So security means terrorist attacks, but it was never published, and they said it was confidential, so we don't know the results. So basically nothing happened after that, except the fact that now the French people know we can enter a nuclear power plant. Our activists went to court. Each time we do an action, we take the responsibility of our acts. Actually, we did something useful. We showed all the French population that our nuclear power plant were not protected against terrorist attacks. Nuclear can never be a local issue, because if a major accident happens in a power plant in France, all Europe will be touched by it. And if a terrorist attack happens on a plutonium transport in France, and this plutonium is used to make a bomb by a terrorist group in any other country in the world, it's a global issue. Nuclear is never a local issue.
Greenpeace members did at one of the French nuclear reactor facility thus make us wonder if the nuclear industry is upholding the highest safety and security standards. Dr. Peterson, as a former member of the Manhattan Project, your contribution in nuclear physics made it possible for nuclear energy to be a power source today. So if you were to compare then and now the industry, is it as safe as it claims?
That's an almost impossible question to answer definitively. It is, the nuclear industry gets safer all the time. We learn from the past. We gain experience. We, as I say, we eliminate mistakes that caused past disasters. Mm-hmm. We cannot eliminate all mistakes that might cause future disasters, though. Right. But I do believe that the nuclear industry is relatively safe. In France, for example, as with an overwhelming fraction of their energy coming from nuclear, they have never had a fatal accident or a very serious accident.
Since we're talking about the source of our energy in the future, what do you think is the most likely source of energy will be for future generations?
My career has started off in nuclear energy, and it gradually changed into atomic physics and quantum mechanics. Over the years, I've considered everything, all possible sources of energy. Mm-hmm. Nuclear energy has the one great advantage over all other kinds of energy, mm-hmm. in that it is free of toxic materials that can cause global warming. Even solar energy has unwanted consequences because of the difficulty of manufacturing solar cells. That's a big problem. Mm-hmm. But nevertheless, if I had my way, I would like to see all of our energy coming from solar energy.
Well, Dr. Peterson, thank you very much for being here. And I hope you enjoyed your time here. It's
been a pleasure meeting all of you people. I'm delighted to be here. I'm impressed by the fine work that Tzu Chi does. Thank you for having me.
Okay. And for you guys at home, I hope you enjoyed our show today. My team and I would also like to send our prayers to the survivors of the 311 incident in Japan. Please stay with us next week for the second part of our feature to commemorate the second anniversary of the 311 nuclear incident in Japan. I'll see you next week.